That's one with her.
That's the reality. FCSP does not know anything. The health worker, entire team there does.
नमस्ते ए के छ ठीक छ
program now. Namaste and a very good afternoon everyone. My name is Anil Raj Padrasare. I am MC for this launching ceremony. On behalf of Epidemiology and Disease Control Division, Department of Health Services, I would like to heartily welcome you all here today. Ladies and gentlemen, allow me to proceed further and make this event an official, for which I would like to welcome Dr. Bhim Acharya to chair this event. Dr. Acharya is a director at Epidemiology and Disease Control Division, Department of Health Services, Ministry of Health. Use our applause once again, ladies and gentlemen. Now, allow me to request and welcome Dr. Ramesh Vikram Singh, the chief guest for this ceremony. Dr. Ramesh Vikram Singh is a Deputy Director General at Department of Health Services, Ministry of Health. We are so very thankful for his acceptance as chief guest for this event. Ladies and gentlemen, use our applause once again. Moving further, I would like to request and welcome Mr. Bogindra Raj Total, Chief of Policy Planning and International Cooperation Division, Minister of Health, to be seated in the dais as a guest. I guess he's on his way. I'll be calling his name once again later on. Moving further, I would like to request and welcome Mr. Naren Prasad Kanal, Chief of Water Quality Section, Department of Water Supply and Sewerage, to be seated in the dais. Moving further, I would like to request and welcome Dr. Ronald Khan, Deputy Country Representative from UNICEF, kindly be seated in the dais as a guest. Moving further again, I would like to request and welcome our special guest, Professor David Sack, kindly be seated in the dais. Professor David Sack is a global leader in cholera control. Moving further, I would like to request and welcome Dr. Nihal Singh to be seated in the dais. Dr. Singh is a medical officer at WHO. Dr. Singh, please. Thank you, everyone. Before I proceed into the main agenda, I would like to take an approval with our chairperson, Dr. Acharya. May I, sir? Thank you very much for your approval. Ladies and gentlemen, now I would like to request and welcome Dr. Bhim Acharya, Director of EDCD, as well as the chair of this ceremony, for his welcome speech.
Good afternoon. It gives me great pleasure to welcome all of you and share the launching ceremony of the National Preparedness and Response Plan for Acute Gastroenteritis and Cholera in Nepal 2017 to 2022. As you all know, Nepal is a cholera endemic country with epidemic potential. Several people have been affected from this killer disease and hundreds have lost their life in the past. We identified the strengths, gaps, challenges and opportunities from the preparedness and response of 2016. Based on the in-depth analysis, this plan was developed in a participatory way, consulting all the relevant stakeholders. This plan will guide the government actions towards the control of cholera and combine the effort of all stakeholders to work in a single plan in a collaborative and coordinated way. The Epidemiology and Disease Control Division, Department of Health Services, Ministry of Health, perceived the need for national plan that will guide the health and waste sector to prevent and control acute gastroenteritis and cholera outbreaks. The main objective of this plan is to improve the overall health status of Nepal by reducing incidence of cholera throughout the country. This is intended to serve as both a guide and a source of accountability for the responsible parties. I request all humanitarian organizations and partners working to control cholera in Nepal to follow and be a part of the plan and to support the NTCD to effectively implement this plan. This plan will be a guiding resource in the response to cholera outbreaks at all levels and for all relevant stakeholders. I would like to thank all the government organizations like the National Public Health Laboratory, Child Health Division, Logistic Management Division, Department of Water Supply and Sewerage, Sukraraj Tropical and Infectious Disease Hospital, and non-governmental organizations like the World Health Organization, UNICEF, Johns Hopkins University, Group for Technical Assistance, all the Sentinel hospitals and the NGO working on WAS, who have contributed to develop this first ever and important plan, National Preparedness and Response Plan for Acute Gastroenteritis and Cholera Outbreaks in Nepal 2017 to 2022. Once again, I would like to welcome you all in this ceremony. Thank you.
We would like to honor Professor Sang. Ladies and gentlemen, as we all are aware that he's in Nepal and it's our great pleasure welcoming in Nepal, as well as Professor David Sack from Johns Hopkins University. I would like to come forward.
You can speak from here if you wish.
Vikram Singh to do the honor.
Stand or do I sit?
Here's round of applause.
Thank you very much.
Then followed by Saul.
My goodness.
And the certificate of
Thank you.
fellowship.
Thank you so much.
Ladies and gentlemen, now moving further, I would like to welcome Professor David Sachs for his presentation. Today, Professor Dr. David Sachs will be sharing with us a global perspective on
13 this at all. But I also want to thank the chief guest and the chair of this session, and I want to thank you all for coming to here to talk about cholera, my favorite subject. But unfortunately, we still have to deal with this problem in the world today. So, what we're going to be doing is, as I say, is talking about cholera and from a global perspective. I know that you're mainly interested in understanding cholera in Nepal, but I think sometimes it's helpful to see the global outlook for cholera and where things are moving. Currently, the estimate is that there's about 1 billion people who are living in countries with cholera, and annually about 90,000 people are dying of cholera around the world. About 2 to 3 million cases of cholera are occurring. The neighbor to your south, India, we know has cholera, but recently our group at Johns Hopkins has been working with the scientists in India to try to get a handle on the cholera situation in India. And I was surprised. I knew that cholera would be occurring in West Bengal, but I didn't know until we actually started making this map that cholera was occurring in almost all of the states in India. And I would just point out, especially in the northeast states, which of course are the closest to Nepal, it remains a major problem. Some countries in Africa where we've been working have been having severe outbreaks of cholera. This is the epidemic curve that's been occurring in Tanzania over the last year. This is a daily rate, so sometimes 200 cases a day are occurring there, and that outbreak has persisted for more than a year. In the Democratic Republic of Congo, this is a country that has almost continuous cholera, and this goes on and on year after year. In Iraq, we don't usually think of the Middle East as being a country with cholera, but in fact they had a major cholera outbreak in the year 2015. So how do we respond to this cholera problem? Well, we have sort of the standard approach, which would be that you try to detect the cases, and of course you ensure that there's good case management. A patient who comes to the treatment center should never die. Treatment is 100% successful if it's provided properly. So nobody should be dying of cholera, but in fact they are dying. And why is that? The most common reason that people die from cholera is that people do not get to the treatment center in time. Maybe they live in remote areas, or maybe they don't realize how severe their disease is, or maybe they get stuck in traffic. So this is a disease that kills people very quickly, and so there are still people dying. Of course, during an outbreak, we try to improve the wash situation. And on the long term, of course, we know that water sanitation is going to be the solution to prevent cholera. But unfortunately, I think we often think, well, we just have to live with it. This is something that we live with like mosquitoes. Not much you can do. But I think now we're beginning to realize that yes, there is something we can do. There are some new tools. And we can detect cases much more quickly, and we can respond more quickly. We can carry out improved surveillance so we know where the hot spots are. And we have some new tools such as the rapid diagnostic test, the RDT. And what I'm perhaps even more enthusiastic about is the use of filter paper specimens so that we can detect cholera using PCR. And it does not help that patient originally, but it does help you carry out surveillance, so at least then you know where and when the problem is. And of course, we have a vaccine, but we need to know how and when and where to use the vaccine. This slide shows what's happened to the use of vaccine over the last few years. We've had a cholera vaccine called Zuccarel, and that, let's see, and that was pre-qualified back in early 2000s. So even though we have that vaccine, nobody was using it. It was not suitable for developing country campaigns. It was only really being used in travel clinics so that Westerners, when they're traveling to cholera areas, they would feel protected. Then we have Chantal. and that was pre-qualified in 2011. That made a huge difference, but it was not, this vaccine was much more suitable for developing countries, but eventually what really made the difference was getting the stockpile and getting the Gavi investment, so it became possible. We also now have what's called the Global Task Force on Cholera Control, the GTFCC, which helps to coordinate activities around cholera control. And this helps to facilitate the use of vaccine. So over the last 3 years, this is what's happened. So in 2015, about 1,600,000 doses were used. The next year, it's almost 5 million. And already this year, it's over 4 million. So we're only into April now. And so the rate of use of vaccine is greatly increasing. You'll notice in the maps, all the red areas in Africa are countries where there is a campaign, there has been a campaign during the last 3 years. So this is something that is growing in many countries. And you'll see it's more being used in Africa than it has been in Asia. So there have been some constraints in the use of oral cholera vaccine, which are outlined here. And some of these constraints have now been solved. We don't have these constraints anymore, but sometimes we think we do. And if we think we have a constraint, then it's inhibiting our work. Originally we had a short supply, so we had to consider how can we use this vaccine if we only have a little bit. If we only have a few thousand doses, how do we use it? That's not a problem anymore. Now the company in Korea is making vaccine. They can make 25 million doses a year. So we don't have this short supply anymore. So we have to start thinking bigger and not just thinking, oh, what can we do with this minimal amount? We were worried whether people would accept this vaccine. What would they think about it? Maybe they would have some strange notions about this vaccine. In fact, people want it. People who are living in areas with cholera, they know how bad cholera can be, and the acceptability has been very high. The coverage rates have been very high. So that is really not a problem. A cold chain. When you look at the package insert, it says, oh, you're supposed to keep this vaccine, 2 to 8 degrees. It turns out that, yes, for long-term storage, it needs to be in the cold, but on the day of vaccination, it does not need a cold chain. You can just take it to the field and deliver the vaccine at room temperature, so that logistically this makes a huge difference in being able to deliver vaccine during campaigns. It's designed as a 2-dose vaccine, but now we know that a single dose is almost as good as 2 doses. So what we're seeing now is that it's obviously much easier to give a single dose than it is to try to find those people and give them a second dose. So logistically, this solves so many problems. And clearly, if you have, say, 1 million doses, it's better to give 1 million doses to 1 million people rather than to only 500,000 people. And finally, the issue of pregnancy. The people were worried that, is this vaccine going to be safe if a woman is pregnant? Now, the problem, it's an interesting question, but it also is a logistical problem. When you're doing a campaign and a woman approaches you, maybe she's 25 years old, and you ask her if she's pregnant. Well, she thinks that's none of your business, right? If I'm pregnant or not, don't bother me with that question. I'm here to get a cholera vaccine. And it turns out now that we know this vaccine is safe in pregnancy, we don't have to even ask women who are coming for vaccine, we can give it. I know that this is an important issue, and I just want to go into a little bit more detail about this pregnancy issue and tell you a story about Malawi during the last year. They had a major outbreak of cholera in the southern part of Malawi. This was associated with floods and refugees. This is what the area looked like when these floods hit. Refugee camps were established, and cholera broke out in these camps. And fortunately, there had been plans already through International Vaccine Institute to provide vaccine. But when this big outbreak occurred in this flood situation, we were able to obtain much more vaccine, and so a big campaign was carried out. The Ministry of Health decided that the risk was high, and they would not exclude women who were pregnant. So this provided an opportunity then to follow up women who received the vaccine at the time they were pregnant and compare any adverse events with other women who did not receive vaccine. These were women who were living in the next district over, so a very similar group of people. And it turns out that in follow-up, there was no increase in adverse events of pregnancy among the women who had received the vaccine. So this is only one study. There's other studies now which show that the vaccine is safe, and we don't have to worry about the exclusion for pregnancy. So if we're going to be using this vaccine, how do we know where to use it? Now the map on the right side is a map of Uganda. We know that cholera is occurring in Uganda every year, but they also have a surveillance system, and so we can draw a map and show where in Uganda, which districts and even what counties is the cholera occurring. And so we can see that on the west side of the country is where most of the cases are occurring, in those few districts that are adjoining one of the Great Lakes. It's called Lake Albert. So we know where to target the vaccine. Now what about Nepal? Where do we target the vaccine? Well, we don't know. We know the cholera is occurring, but we don't have a good surveillance, we don't have good data to draw this map. And I think this is going to be one of the issues for the next few years, is to have an improved surveillance so we know where we can provide the vaccine to people. One of the ways that we can do this is, as I mentioned a little bit earlier, is with this filter paper method. So if a patient is suspected of having cholera, one only needs to put a stool sample on a filter paper, let it air dry, and save those. And at a later time, we can then detect cholera using PCR method. Now, of course, it's not going to help that particular patient, but it will help draw the map and see how much cholera is there that we have not been detecting, because of, even a clinic without a laboratory can put a little bit of stool on a filter paper, and later on we will know with this cholera or not cholera. Now I'm focusing on cholera here, but we can also use that for detecting other common pathogens like Shigella or enterotoxigenic E. coli. We also want to think, how can this plan turn into reality? when we look at what does it take to get a new intervention like a vaccine or some new intervention, well, first, you have to have evidence. You have to know what the disease burden is. You have to have efficacy of this intervention. You have to organize that data. You have to prepare policy. And this is very important that now we have a policy document with this national plan. But that's not enough, is it? Having a plan is not going to save anybody's life. You really have to have the program in action, the political will, and the system to deliver it. So this is, I think, one of the reasons for this meeting today is to see how can we turn this plan now into a reality. I have a lot of hope about reduction of cholera in Nepal. It's a problem that can be eliminated. It will not go, it will go away once we have good water sanitation, but we don't have to wait for that. And we know that cholera spreads, but we can interrupt the transmission and reduce the transmission. I put up this one sort of epidemiological term that the R0 is quite low. What that means is if you can think of a disease like measles, if we don't have measles vaccine, one measles case will spread it to 12 more. So the R0 would be 12. Influenza is like an R0 of 12 because one patient can spread it to 12 more people. Cholera is quite low. The R0 is 2 to 3. Now the principle of this R0 is if you can reduce the R0 to less than 1, the disease disappears. And I think we can do that. If you can reduce it with water sanitation and reduce it with vaccine together, we can drive the R0 less than 1, and cholera will, for all practical purposes, disappear. So I also want to stress that Nepal can be the leader. The fact that you now have a national plan, that's unique. There's not many countries that even have a national plan. I want to congratulate you for doing this, because this is, I think that Nepal can show many other countries how this can be done. It's a comprehensive plan, and now the actions will be important in the monitoring and making sure that what's in the plan is actually carried out. So again, I want to especially congratulate the EDCD for all the work that you've done and all the other departments that you've been working with to develop this plan. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor David Sack, for sharing information on global perspective on preparedness. I would like to move on with the main agenda of this event. That is launching ceremony of the National Preparedness and Response Plan for Acute Gastroenteritis Cholera Outbreak in Nepal 2017 to 2022. This book will be distributed to everyone will be opening up at the same time. Use round of applause, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you, everyone. Everyone here. We can get a copy of it by the time you're here. Chief. Epidemiology and Disease Control Division, Department of Health Services, Ministry of Health, Preparedness. And today, Dr. Sharma will be sharing with us lesson learned of responses to cholera. Please.
Chief guest, respected dignitaries in dais, respected dignitaries, delegates, and media representatives. It is my pleasure to be here and share the lesson learned. In 2016, we had a comprehensive targeted nutrition approach for cholera control. Last year, before cholera emerging in Kathmandu Valley, we had one intervention, that comprehensive targeted intervention. So I'm going to share the lesson learned, what we have learned during that intervention. My presentation outline will be the rationale and description of the comprehensive targeted intervention for cholera control, and some response activities I will share, and then lesson learned from the implementations. Whether this lesson learned is useful in future cholera outbreak control or not. So, and then I will share some main recommendations. After this recommendation, based on these recommendations, and we had prepared this national preparedness and response plan for acute gastroenteritis and cholera outbreak 2017-2022. So my next presentations will be in some background and introductions on this cholera response plan. For this comprehensive targeted intervention, actually why it is comprehensive? Maybe actually I was talking with Professor Shak today, that maybe we can change this name comprehensive, but this comprehensive itself has meaning, because we include different kind of intervention together to control and contain the outbreak. So we have very good surveillance and to quickly detect the cases at hotspot to find out the index case, and then we go for the other control interventions like water sanitation and hygiene, and similarly case management, and then oral cholera vaccinations. So I'll describe about this a little bit about this CTI. But before that, so what is the rationale for this CTI for cholera control? One rationale is we are facing cholera outbreak frequently in Nepal, most of the time in Kathmandu Valley. And outside the Kathmandu Valley, it is more difficult to contain, and sometimes we lost, many people lost their life. This is one rationale. And another rationale is that so if we have this kind of intervention, so we will stockpile some of the vaccinations which can be used during the outbreak to contain the cholera. And there are some evidences from various cholera control programs and researchers that the persons living around a case, in this case, are at increased risk. So the people who are around in this case are at increased risk. One evidence is that. And another evidence is the highest risk is within the first week and in the same households. So these are some features, the facts that we have. And then other is the increased risk extends after the 3 weeks. So as soon as we find the first case, we have to contain, we have to prevent the spread from that hotspot. And rational, other rational is that the cluster could be due to the common source as well. If there is a common source, so if we are able to identify the common source, so we can immediately start the cholera outbreak. But sometimes it is very difficult to find out which one is the common source, like in Kathmandu Valley. So there are many people are living and many people are mobile. So people are moving from here and there, and so it is very difficult sometimes. And a comprehensive targeted intervention is an attempt to provide interventions those at highest risk. This is not a mass strategy. It is a high-risk targeted strategy. So that who is at high risk, that is the most difficult part. That we have to find out first which population is at highest risk, so we can intervene and we can apply the comprehensive targeted intervention. And if we have, in our last CTI, we didn't get the vaccines in time, and there is also a dilemma of the vaccination as well, because we didn't have the national plan in hand, so we didn't go for the vaccination. But if we had the vaccination, so CTI might be more effective. So as I already explained, the CTI requires clinical, laboratory, and field staff. So we should have surveillance and clinical initially, so clinical detections, and then laboratory confirmation of the case. So CTI, the effectiveness of the CTI intervention depends on how rapid we respond the outbreak of any cholera cases. Therefore, the response should be within 1 to 2 days. If we delay, as we already discussed about the evidences, so the highest risk is the early. So if we respond in time, for example, 1 to 2 days, so we can prevent the outbreak spread. And if it is delayed, the benefit will be reduced or compromised. In this CTI, we have a different kind of approaches. One approach is water, sanitation, and hygiene. And in this water, sanitation, hygiene, wash interventions, we go with public awareness as well. And then, if we already find some focus, some hotspots, then we can apply some ring strategy for cholera vaccination. So this is one. This is the ring strategy. So if we find in this case, first the case present, we to the hospital with acute watery diarrhea. So first case comes to the service outlet like hospitals or any health post, any service outlet. So first detections will happen at the health facility level. Then an hospital lab or national public laboratory performs rapid diagnostic test or cultures. Culture, it takes time. Is already explained by Professor David Sachs. The rapid diagnostic test is the new opportunity that can help us to detect the case very in time, and then we can respond very quickly. So RDD positive or culture initiates or alert us to initiate the CTI. Then we can mobilize our CTI team in the field for the response. In this picture, so this ring strategy is the highest, the peak population at highest risk. So we can consider around 100-meter radius. We can go around, in this case, the 100-meter radius, and then we can intervene these strategies, wash and oral cholera vaccinations and awareness programs. In our CTI, comprehensive targeted interventions for cholera control, last year's projects, we had enhanced hospital-based surveillance in 15 hospitals of Kathmandu Valley. Basically, we have our regular surveillance system, early warning and reporting system, UR systems. It has 82 sentinel sites, but within Kathmandu Valley, it has around 4 sentinel sites only. But we have added more hospitals. Just before monsoon, we had 11 hospital sentinel site, and then after first case identification, we extended to 15 hospitals. So we had 15 hospitals. This is enhanced hospital-based surveillance. And out of 2,000 from this surveillance, we collected 2,376 acute watery diarrhea cases out of from June 1st to December 14th. And out of them, 239 had clinically suspected as a cholera cases. And then our laboratory confirmed that 169 cases are culture positive, and they are culture positive for Vibrio quality O1 organ. It says that clinically about 70% diagnostic accuracy. If the clinician suspect that if it is a cholera, then it showed that about 70% is accurate. In hospital investigation, another aspect that in our CTI program is that upon confirmation of the cholera case, a member of the CTI team attends to administer poison to the case. And then of the 169 confirmed cholera case, 132 hospital investigations have been conducted. But why not 169? There are reasons. The main reasons for the lack of follow-up in hospital is early discharge. Sometimes we receive the information because cholera most of the time, 1 day or 2 day hospital stay is enough. And when we go to the hospital and then patient has been already discharged. And contact information of the case is obtained during the hospital investigation as well. And then we follow the household members, and then we answer the questionnaire. And then team follows up by visiting the household, the case, and to conduct the in-depth interview. If we see this epicard by week, epidemiological week, 32nd week, around July to August, this time is the peak. And we had the highest case at that time, but if we see the first case we have seen is 30th June, and last case we have seen is 14th December. The previous year, in 2015, the last case was September 5. Case was 27th September in 2015, but probably because of our surveillance systems, this enhanced surveillance system and the CTI program is there, so it was able to detect more cases. Probably it might be a reason, but we don't know. And if we see the map, then we are able to map the cases. Initially, the first case was from the Buffalo, Kathmandu. But in Kathmandu, very interesting feature of the cholera is that from there were 2 cases reported from the Buffalo, Kathmandu, but immediately after our intervention, there was no further cases in Buffalo. But there were cholera cases emerged from another places. So it is a kind of jumping from one place to another place to another. So we are not sure where is the main focus. Where is the main, we don't know, we were not able to establish the relationships with the Buffalo case is the main responsible to transmit infections in Lagan. So that is the main problem in the urban, and this is huge city. So most cases were around the Lagan area, and then Mangal Bazar, and similarly this Bhashe party, and last case was detected in Thanko. We were thinking that maybe cholera is contained in Kathmandu, but suddenly some cases emerged in Thankot area. Beyond Kathmandu Valley, we had some cases from Gabre, we had some cases from Saptari as well, and Dhadin. So there are other districts are also affected, but we don't know the link between these cases. During the household investigations, a total of 92 household investigations have been carried out, and with 400 individual interviews and 169 water samples tested. Sometimes it is very difficult that people are not willing to be contacted by our team. So inability to contact the person, sometimes we miss the investigations. Similarly, there are 3 water sources have been found positive for Vibrio cholerae 1 Kodala. That is very interesting. So we had found that Vibrio cholerae in water source as well. And then 111, 86% out of 129 water sources tested for coliform have been found to be unsuitable for drinking. It is the big problem in Kathmandu Valley that almost if we repeated a different kind of survey, we always found that 60 to 90% of water sources are contaminated and not drinkable. So how did we respond? The Epidemiology Disease Control Division, in coordination with DPHOs, Lalitpur, Bhaktapur, Kathmandu, Gabre, and other districts as well, and then UNICEF, and then this is known as here, Johns Hopkins University, with the technical support and other partners, WHO, sorry for that, and WHO with technical support, and has carried out a series of the wash interventions in areas. So there is a technical support from around but the UNICEF is the main supporting partner who support us for the wash intervention. So different campaigns were carried out in different areas, and then activities include health education, messaging, distribution of chlorine for water disinfections, water testing, surveys, and marking. So what were the lessons learned? Yeah, much work learned about overcoming challenges in responding to cholera outbreak in Nepal's urban areas. So urban areas cholera outbreak and rural area cholera outbreak, we have to be careful on the intervention as well. So there is a need to improve cholera surveillance in Kathmandu Valley, because our existing surveillance system is not covering all the hospitals, many hospitals outlets. So that is one lesson learned. And another is that a national plan is needed to provide clear guidelines to all stakeholders. We didn't have that national plan. Because of this lesson learned, we developed this national plan, and today we proudly launched it. So this is a great need to institute regular and improve water quality testings. Similarly, other recommendations: surveillance, update, guideline for the confirmation of the cholera, ensure accurate and timely reporting of acute watery diarrhea and cholera cases from sentinel sites. Water supply and sanitation infrastructure, produce SOPs for coordination of drinking water, institute regular drinking water and quality improvement. Cholera vaccination is another aspect that we could not implement last year. So this is another point that during the lesson learned, it is recommended that to improve the policy on use of the cholera. So in this new plan, we have, if there is an outbreak, if there is surveillance system is very strong, if there is a wash along with, we can use cholera vaccines to contain the outbreak. So laboratory diagnosis, train the additional lab personnel on testing the cholera. So it is very difficult to handle all cases by NPH. So we have to decentralize the laboratory confirmations, because we have many hospitals, a strong hospital in Kathmandu, very good facility there. So, and then regarding the leadership and coordination, Buddhist National Cholera Plan, again, so we already had done this, and clearly defined roles and responsibility at all levels. it has been also done in the cholera plant. Field investigations, it is a district level laboratory for water quality testings. I think ADCT has been doing already for the extending of the water quality testing at the district level. Similarly, begin to regularly test the food from various outlets. That's another aspect. The food quality and food inspection is one missing part in our intervention. And communication and social mobilization, media briefing and public health messaging, ADCT has been doing. Most of the time, if there is any event, we ask, we organize a media briefing and do that. And then hold regular behavioral change communication meetings outside the outbreaks. Not only the response time, but before the outbreaks also, we had to conduct such behavioral communication meetings. And clearly define that is also, for the volunteers also, we should have clarified what is the role of the volunteers. Thank you so much. Included in this national plan. The objectives of this national plan is to improve overall health status last year. I think that was a great achievement. And so our objective again is there should not be any cholera in future. So this plan is the main objective is another main objective eliminating the cholera. So specific objectives are to prevent the spread of cholera, and to eliminate mortality from cholera, and to ensure coordinated and collaborative cholera preparedness and response, and to ensure rapid response mechanism during an outbreak. So what are the formats? Just I'm going to highlight this format. The plan was outlined based on the objectives identified by the ministry. Introduction sections with a summary, definitions, background and cholera in Nepal, analysis of the current response capacity, and strategy for preparedness and response, plan of actions, monitoring and evaluation plan, and annexes. Annexes includes different kind of forms, formats. So analysis of the response capacity. It was drawn from the lesson learned that I have shared just before during the 2016 our preparedness and response activities. And then the focus was on the CTI, but there was a lot of discussions on the system as a whole as well. CTI, comprehensive targeted intervention, is a one-time vertical program. It should not sustain always. So our system should be strengthened for long run. And then, so we had some breakout groups were established and based on the expertise and preparations were given by this group. Then this discussion were further analyzed and then we draw the conclusion. So strategy for the response. The plan itself is laid out into 4 sections based on the specific objectives. Those objectives are then broken down into different aspects of response, and a table of actions item is included at the end of the section. So for example, prevent the spread of the cholera outbreaks is broken down into, this is one strategy, we had broken down into surveillance and early warning. 1 point, water sanitation hygiene intervention. Another, immunization with OCD, and behavior change communication and social mobilizations, and other community level activities. This is one example of the action items, immunization activities. That is, I think everyone has got this response plan in your head. So this is one example, action item. So plan of actions is also there. Who is responsible, what kind of activity is done when, that is also mentioned in our this plan. So pre-monsoon, what we should do, and during the monsoon, what can we do, and after monsoon, what we have to do. Similarly, monitoring and evaluations, there are certain monitoring evaluation indicators, and we have included this monitoring evaluation plan in this assessment plan. So there are some annexes, many sections, refer to the specific form or material that should be used to carry out the activities. These are kept in the annexes. Thank you so much.
Very much for sharing information, Dr. Sharma. 5 years national plan is in hand now. Hopefully, things can be done better in the coming days as far as cholera is concerned. Now, I'd like to welcome Mr. Badri Gewali for his presentation. Mr. Gewali is the Chief Surveillance and Research Section at Epidemiology and Disease Control Division at Department of Health. Mr. Gewali.
And today onwards, we have a plan document for cholera outbreak in surveillance. Next. Regarding the types of surveillance, we have a passive surveillance, which is conducted in regular and normal and structured for a defined purpose, that is early warning and reporting system, which Dr. Kumar highlighted. We have 82 sentinel sites across the country. And for a specific purpose, we have active surveillance, like in case of event that is cholera outbreak. At that time, we'll verify, remote verification and other syndromic sentinel site, and we activate all other health institutions too. And generally, passive surveillance hospital are the early warning and reporting system sentinel site, and the specific action for that is a daily reporting during monsoon season, including zero reporting using a standard form which is clearly written in Annex 1. If you go through the next one, it is written and closely monitored by EDCD to ensure reports are accurate and timely. Expansion of early warning and reporting system to additional sites in case of an outbreak in a particular affected area. Sometimes a shortfall of the resource, it is difficult to expand across this affected area. And FCSB in a community to be oriented to report acute watery diarrhea death, related death in the community that did not present in the health facility. They are in the community. Surveillance and early warning reporting system will publish the situation report. That situation report will be published weekly during the monsoons by EDCD using a standard format. And daily reporting also will be start if outbreak is there, and will begin during an outbreak investigation of potential cholera in the event of an adult death with a watery diarrhea or case greater than 3 in a death in severe dehydration. Next, please. These are the flow, that is a flow mechanism in case of outbreak is happened in a community. The case are referred in the sentinel site and to the EDCD for processing either weekly or daily. Next, please. The core activities that we do simultaneously by area and EDCD. EDCD data are collected and recorded in reporting at the hospital or syndromic sentinel sites, and EDCD compile those reports and edit and publish the bulletin, and they are reported weekly or immediate, and will risk assessment and outbreak preparedness and response jointly. Next, please. The surveillance system have a strength. We have this strength. EOS has emerged is an effective infectious disease surveillance system in Nepal, and which is a prompt one, either daily or weekly. Early alerts for detection of possible outbreaks, and it shows trend, seasonality, weekly incidents, and establish the threshold value for prediction, planning, and intervention. And also it strengthens the laboratory capacity, and it is also systematic approach and rapid response mechanism. And regarding the supply and logistics, we do the stockpile of medical supplies, kits, virus, and antibiotic, strategically positioning by EDCD. If shortage, we request WHO and UNICEF too. And necessary supplies will be mapped annually to address the current needs, including a distribution plan. Regarding the distribution, a regular tracking and monitoring of the supplies will take place. Supplies will be replacement is per need. Supply will be distributed no later than 1 month prior to the season that Dr. Kumar highlighted. Regarding the MNE, you can refer, it is beautifully written in MNE plan in this plan document, and conducting the routine MNE is important in ensuring an effective and efficient program. EDCD will lead annual MNE activities. Revision will be made post-monsoon season as per it. And the task force for cholera control will also perform interim evaluations at their monthly meetings. A series of indicators have been agreed upon the outline document in Annex 8. And indicators are specified for surveillance, laboratory, and response activities. EDCD is responsible for collecting data of these indicators and analyze the results. The result will be shared with the steering committee for enteric disease, who will provide specific recommendation based on those data. Thank you.
Presentation. Ms. Acharya is a senior medical technologist at National Public Health Laboratory, and today she will be sharing with us on laboratory diagnosis. Ms. Acharya.
Respected chief guests and dignitaries, I am going to talk about the laboratory surveillance, how we are going to go about it. So high quality surveillance depends not only the ability to detect the suspected cases of cholera at the health facility, but also to confirm that those cases are indeed cholera. So bacterial culture for Vibrio cholerae has been the gold standard since long now, but during outbreaks it becomes a bit unsure if we are going to delay the reporting. So that's why we have, for lab surveillance, we are going to establish a high quality disease surveillance. It's not a simple task, and it turns out to be very expensive and difficult if you are going to rely on molecular as well as culture methods. So if culture facilities are not available in the health facility, the samples would be collected and stored in, sent through the carrier transport media to NPHL, and where the stool samples can also be stored on filter paper, and then these can be sent to NPHL, and we can go for further molecular studies if we have the facility. So cases will be confirmed by culture at the hospital, which is one part of our decentralization. Except NPHL, there are other hospitals also capable of doing it, and these are included in our sentinel sites. So no less than 10% of cases should be confirmed at NPHL. Last year, what we got was all of the cases were confirmed at NPHL, and we don't think in an outbreak that would be necessary. About 10% cases is more than enough. So we are depending highly on the RDTs, the rapid diagnostic tests, which will be used as a point of care diagnosis at the health facility where they do not have the culture facility. So it is useful to diagnose O1 as well as O139 Vibrio cholerae, though the specificity for O1 is higher. So these are about 90% sensitive sensitive and 60 to 70% specific in field. But what we have seen is if we enrich it, then the sensitivity and specificity goes higher up to 90%. So SOPs have already been prepared and accordingly will be used at the district level. And each district will be provided, as Mr. Gewali said, that they will be taking care of the logistics. So they'll be provided with a stockpile of RDTs. So we are not going to be short of RDTs this year. And these stockpiles will be prepared prior to the beginning of cholera season. So doing a surveillance, we also would like to look at the antimicrobial resistance, which is the main issue and a hot subject in the world recently. So the variation in resistant profile, we're not always getting the same type of resistance. It does vary from time to time in different parts of the world. So the variation results in the need for continuous monitoring to ensure that effective drugs are being used for the treatment of cholera. So any facility that is going to perform culture will also test for the antibiotic susceptibility by the standardized methods. So it will be conducted for up to 10 positive samples for every 2 weeks throughout the outbreak. And the results will then be sent to ADCD and NPHN, and it will be a part of our regular cholera surveillance reporting. In the event that we get a new resistance pattern, EDCD will handle the dissemination and ensure that the national antibiotic recommendations are updated accordingly for the treatment of cholera. So we would also be taking care of the capacity assessment, as we already have done some training of trainers. So annual assessment of the lab capacity at various levels and training of staff will take place at the peripheral levels, and DPHOs will be responsible for reporting whether they have the culture capacity or they need the lab supplies for the same. So stock reports should take place monthly and replacement will be taken as necessary. So that is all for the lab surveillance. If you have any queries, thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Jyoti Acharya. Moving further, now I would like to request and welcome Dr. Divek Kumar Lal for his presentation. Dr. Divek Kumar Lal is Chief at Vector-Borne Disease Control Section, Epidemiology and Disease Control Division. And today, Dr. Lal will be sharing with us on core disease and rapid response mechanism, along with an immunization and case management. Dr. Lal, please.
Thank you. Mentioned about the coordination, rapid response mechanism, as well as immunization and case management strategy, as it has been outlined in the National Preparedness and Response Plan that is in your hands. So, as you may be aware, we have a high-level steering committee for infectious diseases, which looks after any outbreak of infectious diseases. It guides the entire decision-making process for cholera control, and it has a mechanism through which it disseminates surveillance information through an AGE or cholera situation report, so that it will enable all the stakeholders for rapid response. And it meets 1 month prior to each monsoon season, so that it can discuss plans for cholera preparedness and response in case of any outbreak with all the relevant stakeholders. And it also ensures that all districts have the necessary resources and are aware of reporting mandates before there is any outbreak of cholera or any other AGE. And under this high-level steering committee, we also have a task force for cholera control. And it includes mainly, it is led by EDCD director, and it also includes all our governmental and non-governmental stakeholders and partners. And it is responsible for mapping the available resources which will be needed in case of an outbreak, and it is done before the seasonal outbreak happens. And it also meets at least monthly and during the monsoon season. And it also monitors the response and ensures that there is a solid and well-coordinated response in case of any outbreak for immediate action. And it monitors progress of outbreaks and reviews the prevention, preparedness, and response plans on a yearly basis. And it also, based on its early experiences, formulates and suggests a plan for next year. And there is a rapid response mechanism which advocates strengthening the government system, and its main purpose is to ensure that the government response system acts quickly, preferably within 24 hours of a reporting of a case. And it is done at all the levels, and at all levels it is ensured that there is a government official who is the proper authority and responsibility to give the green light. In case we need to implement complete-level campaigns to control cholera, it can include vast interventions or even oral cholera vaccine campaigns if needed. And all the districts are supposed to have plans and supplies in place, as well as all the health workers and FCSBs as well as vaccinators trained prior to the start of season, so that in case of any outbreak, there will be a timely response. And as you might be very well aware, we have rapid response teams at all levels, including at the central level as well as regional and district levels. And even within districts, there are community level rapid response teams. And the main task of the rapid response teams at all levels is to conduct field investigations, deliver interventions, and ensure that stool specimens at the sites of outbreaks are sent to lab for confirmation. And line listing of the cases reported for investigation by the RRT are made available by the EWA Sentinel sites, and it includes all the identifying information of the patient so that the RRT can do its job properly. And the team also collects data on the risk factors so that the team which will be implementing interventions has a very good knowledge of the situation and they can have more targeted interventions. And when it comes to the immunization strategy, the oral cholera vaccine strategy, we have taken a reactive approach because of two factors. One is due to the limited availability of the vaccine in the country, and another is the lack of data, or rather limited data on which to base the targeting of preemptive vaccination. So our strategy is a reactive one, and in our context, the plan advocates the use of a single dose of oral cholera vaccine within 100 meter radius around an index case. And I think our colleague Dr. Sharma had shown it beautifully in his presentation there, how it will be done. And once the adequate data has been collected on the cholera burden around the country, a preemptive vaccination with 2 doses might be considered in the future. But for now, it's a reactive strategy that we'll be following. And for immunization, it is recommended that there should be a stockpile of oral cholera vaccines created, ideally of at least 50,000 doses. And it should be pre-positioned before the start of monsoon season. And for the immunization purposes, a detailed micro-planning is done at the peripheral levels. Health workers, FCSB, all are trained as earlier mentioned. And the most important part of any outbreak response is education and orientation of media personnel, as well as providing accurate and detailed information about any planned immunization campaign to the affected population, so that there will be no confusion and no ambiguity about the purpose of the campaigns that we'll be conducting. And I might have forgotten to mention a very important point, that immunization is not supposed to displace vast activities, but rather to complement it. And these are the details that you see in the annexes of the plans that you have, how we will be reporting. And as part of our response, health education is also a very important tool, and we will be using it simultaneously. And there will be IC materials, especially on vast activities. There will be standardized materials prepared and distributed along with the vaccinations. And in case of capacity building, there will be annual training for how to identify the cases, how this will be managed, as well as reporting, referral, and infection control. These will be done through all the health facilities. And the plan also envisages a digital resource center that will be created as part of the EDCD website that you might already have had a chance to look at. It would include all the forms, guidelines, algorithms for case management, and other materials that can be accessed by all who are interested and who need to participate during any kind of outbreak investigation and response. And the document, if you have had a chance to look at it, also talks in detail about having a standardized case management, including the treatment part, and so that there would be a unified, coordinated response, and cases would be managed well. And it also focuses mainly on the rehabilitation part of the cases, but it has some mention about when to use the antibiotics. Thank you. That will be all.
I'd like to request and welcome Mr. Nan Prasad Khanal for his presentation. Mr. Khanal is the Chief at Water Quality Section, Department of Water Supply and Sewerage, and today he'll be sharing with us on water, sanitation and hygiene. Mr. Khanal, please.
Good afternoon, everyone. Respected chairperson, respected dignitaries in the dais, respected delegates, media person, ladies and gentlemen. It is my pleasure to be here and share water, sanitation and hygiene component that is incorporated in national preparedness and response plan for cholera outbreak. Before coming to the main context of response plan, I want to highlight some strengths, weaknesses, and opportunities that is right now in the water supply, sanitation, and infrastructure. If we look at some strength, a regular coordination in large-size water supply projects is going on, basically in Kathmandu, Petaka, KOKL, Nepal Water Supply Corporation, and some small town projects throughout the country. As you know, we have more than 44,000 schemes in our country. In all schemes, chlorination is right now not possible, but we are initiating to make the chlorination in every project as soon as possible in our report, because bacterial contamination is the major strategies for us, and we are going to make some decision on that also. And the use of field water test kits by a small team, easy to use. We have available the water kit in the different districts as well in individual projects. Some individual projects, it is available and easy to use also. And in the last coming years, coordination with the water tankers and other private service providers is going very well. We are very much in coordination with them. And we have one central lab in the Kathmandu and 5 regional water quality lab in the 5 regions. They are able to make some water quality parameter monitoring. And in the recent days, initiations of directives, some plans have been done for the water tankers. And I think in coming month, some initiation will be done for the tankers. If you go on the weaknesses in this sector, right now, no water system mapping, which hinders attempt to trace source and output in the system. That is the weaknesses. And responsibilities for water coordination during the cholera outbreak was unclear, because we have different stakeholders working in this sector. Some users committees, some users organizations, some service providers, and some water supply and sanitation water supply board. And who is the actual responsible for the chlorination in epidemic situation? It was challenging, and we have to be clear on that. In the same time, monitoring mechanism is not systematized to ensure regular quality for microbiology, and obviously lack of coordination on the sharing of water quality testing results among the waste and health sector. First of all, we have no integrated data on water quality. That's challenging. In the same time, we have no good coordination among the stakeholders to share and the water quality issues, basically in the sector. Oh, it's very smart. Some opportunities are also available. At home, point of use disinfectant products are available in markets and can be major messages of health information campaign at these areas. And implementation of water safety plan and protection of source of drinking water by the Department of Water Supply and Sewage. I want to mention that is Department of Water Supply and Sewage is going to initiate and water safety plan approach in the project cycles. In new projects from coming fiscal year, we are going to internalize the water safety plan concept in all new projects. That's the most important factor I have to share over here. At the same time, there are some threats. The cost of these materials is not regulated and would be a major factor in household decision to use the cleanliness at home. At the same time, limited availability of hand washing station is in that home is also the third part of the water supply and sanitation inspection system. If you go on the preparedness and response plan on WAS, and in the community level, what intervention, preventive water sanitation and hygiene intervention will be specifically targeted to the household, community, including food vendors, school, workplace, and health facility levels. Specific WAS activities will be take place prior to the cholera season in high-risk area in each district. At the same time, these include the distribution of point-of-use materials like Acute, PUs, and some building powder for the community level projects. At the same time, standardize the radio messaging on the WAS advocacy in health barrier. District level offices, health offices, and district water supply and sanitation offices will encourage the construction of household toilets and hand washing facilities and its adequate maintenance. And wash promotion will also take place during the season and at the school and community gathering. If you look on the water supply intervention in total, specific intervention concerning access to drinking water will be established by performing routine analysis of the existing water supply systems. Department of Water Supply and Sewage and its district offices will be engaged to provide the routine water quality monitoring in the form of pre-register coding and fecal quality form test. As you know, we have the drinking water quality standard which has the 27 parameters that should be complied by urban water supply system. But our concern will be basically on the lateral contamination. That's why we are going to enhancement on the existing water quality laboratories and other water quality facilities throughout the country. That means we are going to capacitate all the existing laboratories. At the same time, we are going to make the water quality kit available in every district. At the same time, we are planning to facilitate and provide this kit to the water supply project there who are capable to handle and maintain their water quality parameters. Other most important parameter is the intervention on water quality issues, the implementation of water safety program in the projects. And at the same time, water quality surveillance programs will be extended by Ministry of Health. As in the last 2 years, surveillance mechanism is very much going very much good, and it is accelerated. And I think in all 75 districts, water quality surveillance is going to be implemented. What are the key activities on WAS response? First of all, chlorinate all pipe drinking water system and water treatment. It is very much important for the eradication of lateral contamination. It will be the most important focus on that. Regularly monitoring systems prior to the season and more frequently during the outbreaks, including provision of chlorination materials and training where required. Train on point of use drinking water treatment at the household level in high-risk areas. Implement a food safety campaign targeting both food vendors and households through our social mobilization and mass media channels. Practice hand washing with soap through the health messaging campaign at critical times, and ensure proper collection and management of solid waste. Support community lead sanitation activities to encourage household and health posts to rebuild and build toilets and hand washing facilities. Maintain adequate sanitation and hand washing facility in household level. Pre-position wash material at the local level to enable rapid scale of intervention in new areas and continuity in existing areas in the event of an outbreak. And stabilize the electric wash equipment and ensure materials are available in Kathmandu to be deployed to the necessary. Thank you.
So far we have this event. Now with the permission from Chair, I would like to open up the floor for your question and answer session.
Hi everyone, this is Kamala Casey. I'm representing ACF International Action Against Hunger. My question is it's kind of general questions regarding this preparedness plan we have. It's a great honor for all of us to have this plan in hand because it will guide us in future how we are going to work in this sector. I'm just curious to know that while preparing this document, whether we did the analysis, whether we did the cost analysis or not. That means, is the available resources is sufficient to implement this plan or not? I'm just curious to know. Thank you.
100 meters radius and then the population in that. We do have idea that in Kathmandu, what 100-meter radius means. So are we realistic here? So just, if anybody can answer that also. Is it really 100-meter radius where you have a shortage of vaccine?
I'm sorry, I'm Melissa Raskowski, I'm from Johns Hopkins University. We talked an awful lot about this radius, and this is something that happens in different countries when we've talked about what it means. We assume in this area that it would be approximately 1,000 people. But this is something that would have to be worked out over time, and that's the reason why we put the diagram up for the CTI project. That 100 meters was not specifically specified in the plan, and that's because that would have to be something that we would work out based on the situation. How many cases we saw. There are lots of different ways to do the ring strategy, one of which would be a ward-specific strategy, because those outlines are already made. The problem with that is that you have some wards that are humongous and some that have 800 people in them. So it'd have to be context-specific. But so while we planned that for the CTI project, that isn't necessarily something that we would implement as part of the plan.
Thank you. I understand that. That's why we wanted to put it just not restrict on this 100-meter radius. Go for ward or go for other epidemiological analysis.
Yes.
No question?
No question, but later I want to add something.
Namaste. I'm Dr. Krishna from the hospital. I'd like to ask Guna about the presentations. You mentioned about the first case in the Kathmandu and then the Lorenzou, that why we know about the last outbreak. And I'd like to ask whether we did the monitor testing, whether those organ is the same that is moving from Kathmandu to Lorenzou, or it's a different organism, or whether it is same to the last year. Because last year there was outbreak in the Kathmandu, confined to Kathmandu. Now this time there are more and more confined to Lorenzou. Or has there been done any monitor analysis so that we can know that the same organism is moving, or is a different organism that's one question. And another question is regarding the preparedness plan. We know that we have got a rapid response team, and that has been extensively worked in the previous year also. But when I'd like to comment on that. There's lack of epidemiologists in the team, and with this experience of the last year outbreak, whether you also feel like the epidemiologist also required, or like this response team is good at controlling the outbreak. There's no doubt it has been successful in the outside the valley also, inside the valley also. But whether this response team will be adequate for generating the evidence for the or learning for the next or generating the evidence out of that outbreak. So do you feel it's a need for the evidence?
Jyoti Acharya. How the coordination mechanism has been developed among private health facilities or centers for laboratory confirmations and RDTs?
Jyoti is not here. The appropriate patient. For the RDTs, they do over there at the site on the whatever EDCT provide the kits, and after that we collect the sample from there and come to inpatient. We analyze the sample by culture, and for the PCR, at present we don't have the facility for the any bacteriological disease. So very soon we are going to start the bacteriological molecular test very recently, and even the other bacteriological tests throughout the country in 5 regions. So very soon we are going to start the PCR for the genotyping, and for the RDTs we do in the site. Thank you.
Dr. Nielsen for providing time. First of all, I really like to congratulate EDCD to having this comprehensive document, National Preparedness Response Plan, and I really agree with Dr. Guna Sharma because I also like to the strengthening surveillance is very important because we are having outbreak at least every year and twice a year in different locations of the country. It happened in Jadavpur because we lost so many lives. After that, there are outbreaks in different districts. But actually, we do not have data. That's why we need to have a surveillance part. You mentioned this is very important. The strategy you said that you mentioned that eliminate cholera death in 5 years. But I suggest we should go for eliminate cholera in another 5 years. If we go that, because other countries, maybe like Cambodia or in Thailand, many other countries, they are successfully, even in Vietnam, many countries, they successfully eliminate cholera these days. So if you could go for surveillance and more comprehensive type of surveillance, find out the cases and go for, like you mentioned, was with OCD, then within 5 years, we can eliminate, I do not like confuse leprosy again because I just come from leprosy. I like to eliminate because I like this word eliminate and cholera eliminate within the next 5 years. Thank you very much.
So this plan is emerged from these experiences that we had comprehensive targeted universal cholera control last year. We had other outbreak responses in the past. For example, Jadavpur outbreak, and there are several outbreaks. Specifically, you have added the cost-benefit analysis. It was not done while preparing this cholera response plan. But if there are specific interventions, so on that, we will do further cost-benefit analysis. For example, the CTI, comprehensive targeted intervention, there is a OCV, oral cholera vaccinations. It is some other evidence has shown that it is cost effective if we are able to identify the index case.
But I mean to say not the cost benefit, the gap in between the existing resources and that we need in future.
And it was discussed. Resources, yeah. Resources were, it was discussed while we are preparing this cholera response plan. Not the cholera. Thank you. And then another question already responded by Malaysia. It was specifically during this CTI project, and it is it is not in the cholera response plan, but it is flexible. As Malaysia already mentioned that it is flexible. We can decide how much radius or how much area we can target for this. And then you have mentioned, you have asked two questions. One is whether it's genetic link with the buffer case, and then there's Lagan case and other cases, whether there is any genetic sequencing was done. Actually, I'm not able to respond to these questions. Probably Mother Sir will respond it, because we didn't go probably on this genetic sequencing. And another is epidemiologist. Most of them, that is experience in past that we were very much reactive to the to any kind of outbreak, but we had not done.
He is asking for whether you have done or not for the sequencing.
Yeah.
You have done molecular test or not?
I don't know.
Not only that, whether it was the same
That's I mean,
or
done or not.
if it is not, it's
No,
done. If not, make him understand what we did, because
we have not done.
one of the stakeholders to know it about, I think this is the right question.
We don't have, but you have done through the WHO or something.
No, never we don't go beyond the temperature. Where we will agree.
Have you have sent it somewhere else about the stereotyping or not? If not, it's not.
Dr. Martin. Okay, let me answer another question regarding the epidemiological investigation. Yes, that's true that the WHO recommended that everyone, around, we have a 27 million population, so we need around 270 epidemiologists. Yeah. 100,000 population need one epidemiologist. So we do not have enough epidemiologists. We had not performed very thorough epidemiological investigations in many outlets. That's true. But we are trying to strengthen this epidemiological investigations in future. That's very
one idea that is also used is that we have got some epidemiologists in the medical college, and there is a department of community program in every medical college. And if we coordinate, then I think that's one way, because we don't have epidemiologists in the government line, or we don't have post for epidemiologists in the government sector. So maybe one idea could be the collaboration with the this medical colleges. That I was also involved in the two of the outbreak when I was a student. One is in South Africa, that was cholera outbreak, and one was in Vietnam, that was hepatitis outbreak. And I think that way also, but it was, we came a bit at the meat of the, or at the later half of the outbreak. But if we make some coordinations prior, that's what I felt from the field, being a part of the outbreak investigations. We could also contribute on this. And one way that could we also do in whether, because now almost 5 regional we have got to 1 medical colleges, and there are other medical colleges that are coming, and so there will be one, in every medical there will be department of common program. So there will be epidemics. So we can use what your idea about that.
Exactly. Thanks so much. This is an excellent suggestions and a great opportunity to collaborate with academia for the outbreak investigation, for outbreak investigations. I think I have responded to all questions, and thank you so much, Director from Central Tourism Foundation, for the suggestions that eliminate the cholera. So this is a world disease, world problem. Still we have some new opportunities, as mentioned by Professor Shack. We have to try to eliminate cholera. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Professor David Sack would also like to ask a question.
I just wanted to highlight the molecular opportunities for identifying strains. I think you already mentioned this of the isolates that you made, that you collected from the last season. I don't believe that there's been any molecular work done on those. But this is now possible using even the filter paper samples. We identifying them using the whole genome sequencing. But actually, that's the gold standard for molecular identification. But there's another method called MLDA, which is very rapid, can be done very much less expensively, and all of the 169 isolates could be done in a week. Just to give you an example of what happened, I think you saw that epi curve from Tanzania, and you would think that that was one strain that was spreading through the country. But the situation was, in fact, that there was a group of refugees that came from Burundi into Tanzania, and there was an outbreak there. And then there was also outbreak in the rest of the country. And it turned out these were, in fact, two separate outbreaks when we did the MLDA. So the point is that just because you see cholera, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's all the same. And in order to understand the transmission, you really do need to understand, you need to identify which clone this represents. And then you can sort of work out from an epidemiological standpoint how you might interrupt that transmission. So I think that's for the future, but it's not something that's easy to do here, but in collaboration, it could be done.
A question, but just suggestion from my side. I'm Bizu Dongul from Osman, and good afternoon to everyone. Actually, this is a good plan, and it has incorporated the WAS sectors also. But I just want to highlight that health have different cholera prevention plan, and WAS also have different plan, as well as disaster session. They also have the different plan. We can take the example. We have the contingency plan, WAS strategy plan, DPRP, and this is one of the plan. So I think this is the right time to collaborate with all the intercluster to have the integrated intervention at the ground level. So all the plan should be kept at the one place, and we have to collaborate pick out the integrated approach. So as Pankaj has mentioned about the cost-benefit analysis, so I think that can be done by bringing all the intersector stakeholders at one place, and then we can plan accordingly, so that it will be the integrated intervention at the ground level. Thank you.
My name is Kazu Yusef. Yeah, I have one suggestion on field investigation part. Because last year, yes, we have conducted a field investigation mainly on the household where the cases were detected, and we have we have administered a questionnaire for the data collection. But we had information from the cases, but we didn't have any data from non-cases. So we could not compare the data from cases and non-cases to identify the risk factors or causes for cholera transmission. So last year, what happened was that without knowing the causes of cholera transmission, we were rolling out, implementing a response. So it was not the ideal case. So since investigation is included in the national plan, but I think maybe I should have contributed when I was part of the development of this national plan. But maybe we should put more. We should maybe improve the design of the household investigation from this year and onwards, so that we can effectively determine the causes of cholera transmission in Nepal. Thank you.
Organization. I just had a curiosity because we also have a DFTQC, meaning Department of Food Technology and Quality Control, and Water Tankers Association as the major responsible entities in the plan. I was wondering if we also have representatives from those organizations in this call, because I just wanted to know if they are aware that they are being included in the plan, and if they're interested or not, or are they even aware of such kind of plan being done. Yeah. Thank you.
That question is yes. They were aware, and they've been asked for their opinions on on the plan as well. They were included in the development.
The floor for question and answers. Do we have anyone? Listen, I guess that will be taken care of. And now I would like to move further. And now I would like to request and welcome Dr. Ronald Khan, Deputy Country Representative from UNICEF for remarks.
The chief guest, Dr. David Sack from Johns Hopkins University, my colleague from WHO, representative from Division of Water Supply and Sanitation, representative from various ministries, civil society, NGO, and media personnel. Good afternoon again. It's a great pleasure and privilege for me to attend this event that's launching the National Preparedness and Response Plan against AGE and cholera. I express my sincere thanks to EDCD for convening this important event. As we all know that cholera is a very fatal disease, though in Nepal for the last 2 years, all the diagnosed cases of cholera, there was not a single death case, but in this same country, a lot of people died in Jajarkot not very far ago. I think it was back in 2008 or 9. And when I first came here in Nepal, I went to Jajarkot to attend a ceremony which was for declaration of open defecation-free district in Jajarkot. And I could also understand the plight and the painful experience of the people of Jajarkot, because some of them were actually sharing their experience of losing their relatives, their family members. So this is something which is not very far, and it can happen anytime, any place in Nepal. Also in Nepal, cholera is almost an annual event. It happened in 2015 after I arrived with 79 confirmed cases, laboratory confirmed cases, and in 2016 with 169 lab confirmed cases. So it is happening, but I'm so glad to also know that all the relevant stakeholders, they came together and developed this comprehensive preparedness and response plan, which is extremely important for a country like Nepal. And I would like to congratulate EDCD for taking this initiative and developing this plan. And I think this is for the first time such a plan has been developed to address a disease like cholera. Also, from my limited understanding in Nepal, I think cholera is also a taboo here, because when there were lots of cases of cholera in Kathmandu Valley, still the word cholera was not used in many documents. And I could understand the reason behind it, because it has got implication beyond Nepal. And I don't want to go into details. So I think it's also very important that, you know, this disease can be controlled. There should be no death, and there was a suggestion that cholera be eliminated in this country, which is actually not so, you know, easy to do. Especially it's a waterborne disease, and it's a disease caused by bacteria. But I think there has to be that vision, so that, you know, we can move towards that vision. This development of this plan also was done through close collaboration of various sectors, ministries, as well as department, and also various multi-sectoral stakeholders as well, with close collaboration with EDCD team, and also inputs from WHO, UNICEF, and Johns Hopkins providing the technical support. So I really would like to especially thank Dr. David Sack and his colleagues at the Johns Hopkins University who have ensured that the plan is evidence-based and it's practical for use. I would also like to urge the development partners and also those who are present and those who are not present but whose names are also in that plan, to actively participate in rolling out of this plan, because we can have a very good plan, we can have a very good policy, but until or unless it is broken down into practical steps and implemented, this will only be like, a piece of paper or a document. So we really need to put our act together and to make sure that, all the activities that are included in the response as well as in the preparatory part be carried out. Again, monsoon is very, close. And I think in Nepal, we experienced a bit of early monsoon this year. There were lots of, rains and hailstorms happening already in March, which is also welcome because, after winter, the country was dusty, the city was dusty, and everybody welcomed rain. But monsoon also comes with, other problems as well. So I really would like to urge for a couple of things. One is cholera is something which cannot be dealt by one ministry and one department and one particular body. And so the essence of this plan is multi-sectoral plan. And I'm very pleased to see that EDCD, the Department of Water Sanitation, is here. Also, the behavioral change communication component is extremely, extremely important in terms of prevention of cholera. And so we need to have a very robust communication plan, which involves both the behavioral change at the family level, at individual level, but also mass media, radio, television, everybody has to be involved here. So the multi-sectoral plan is the essence of this preparedness and response plan. The second area is how do we also ensure a robust system. So system strengthening is another area so that every year we don't have to think of capacity building, we don't have to start from zero. If the system is in place, then as soon as a case is reported, it will automatically be rolled out. So capacity building is extremely important, as well as surveillance and as well as how to respond to the data is also very, very important. So the second thing that I would like to urge that in order to sustain this plan, we need to have very robust system. And also the leadership from the government. We were talking about whether there is resource gap or not. And we also need to, related to that, make sure that there is availability of the resources from the government side as well as from the partners so that the plan can be rolled out in an effective manner. The final thing that I would like to touch upon is what is happening in Nepal now. As we are speaking, it's moving through devolution in a very, very fast manner. And we really would like to make sure that the plans that are being developed at the national level, also the same plans are being rolled at the local body level. And there comes this what is the responsibility of the local bodies, what's the responsibility of the province, and what's the responsibility at the federal level. Because this is something where we cannot have different standards, different norms at various levels. I understand that there are authorities and functions that are being provided at various levels, but there are scientific evidence-based plan which cannot be left at every level. Then everybody will start to make their own plans. So we really need to make sure that, especially for health, that standards and norms also have very strong coordination and synchronization at all levels. So with that, I really would like to again thank all of you who have been closely involved, and I know that my colleague Kazu has been working very closely with the GTA, with Johns Hopkins, with EDCD for making this happen, and I hope this plan gets its life and implemented as and when required. Thank you.
Welcome Dr. Nihal Singh, Medical Officer from WHO, for his remarks.
colleague on the floor and friends. First of all, I'd like to congratulate DCD and colleague for timely preparing the plan and also launching this plan very ahead of the monsoon season. And I just wanted to remind that Professor Sek already mentioned that cholera was mostly in African countries, but also Nepal and India. In the map, they are still red over there. So Bangladesh may be having some of those. And again, I came here in 2009 when Dr. Ronak already mentioned that there was a Jajar outbreak, and she went later on by flight, but I went on foot from Rukum, really. And that time it was having flooding or I mean the vehicle could not go to that side, but I went on foot from Rukum up to Jajarkot in 2009. And we saw there the situation. No safe water, no facility for hospitalization of the cases. And yes, people were dying due to they were not being hospitalized, they were not getting services in time. Because I feel like such situation should never happen in any country. So regarding outbreaks in cholera outbreaks in Kathmandu, we experience this every year. But good thing is we have good hospitals. Cases are being timely reported and taken to the hospital, and we have hardly any deaths in Kathmandu. So, but same time after earthquake, there was, people were guessing like the situation is bad. There may be outbreaks. There may be many cases dying. So thank God it did not happen. That was good preparedness by partners and as well as from the ministry side. And when you were mentioning that this vaccination issue, yes, last year when there was Rohtak outbreak, we tried to procure some cholera vaccine. And after that, when last year was also outbreak, we again requested for the central store or headquarters for vaccine procurement, but it could not materialize. And when it came, by that time the outbreak was already over. But we still have experience of vaccination in Nepal when it was done in Rohtak, and then last year in Jajak, I think in Neokot and Dadi. And it was successful, and we don't see any adverse event noted during that period. Then another part is it's a water sanitation issue. So I still believe like other partners other than HELP, UNICEF and other water sanitation colleagues, they have played their great role last year also, and we hope that this year also it can be that there should be no outbreak. There may be few cases reporting, but then the most important activity is the surveillance. How best we are prepared for surveillance? Are all hospitals, small hospitals also oriented that if there is any suspected cholera case, it has to be reported. The sample has to be taken to the NPHL or other laboratory for testing. So that is preparedness, which hopefully this year we will ensure that at least the major hospitals, we have a surveillance focal person and the specimens are taken from initial cases and best response is given. Regarding supply of rapid test kit, we are not sure that whether we do have a rapid test kit yet in the country, not yet. Because in the plan we are also mentioning that for that we need to be having a rapid test kit, whereas for other preparedness like vaccination, we need to start preparedness as soon as possible. And in the end, I wanted to say when we are all coordinated, putting efforts coordinatedly, there should be no cholera deaths in Nepal, and at least the cases should be very, very few. And as said earlier, that it is not difficult to eliminate. And for that, from the WHO side, we will at least try to ensure that if there is further application from the department, and the WHO will definitely proactively cooperate and support for that. Thank you very much.
And welcome Dr. Ramesh Vikram Singh, Chief Guest, for his closing remarks. Dr. Singh, please.
Respected chair of this launching ceremony, Dr. Bhim Acharya, Director of PDCT, Dr. David from John Hopkins University, Deputy Representative of UNICEF, representative of WHO, and Water Quality Chief, Section Chief from Department of Water Supply and Sewerage, distinguished guests, and chief and representative from different organizations, supporting partner, and media personnel. It is my great pleasure to be here in this launching ceremony. I'd like to thank the organizer of this launching ceremony, group for technical assistant, UNICEF, and John Hopkins University. As we know, cholera is still a public health problem in Nepal, and we are facing this different outbreak every year. And recently, just 9 months back, we had a cholera outbreak in Lalitpur, and because we didn't have national preparedness and response plan, so initially it was difficult to manage and control the outbreak. And at that time, I was in Central Regional Health Directorate. I was regional director at that time, and I also many times I attend different meetings, and so it was initially difficult to manage the outbreak. It is our luckily we managed that outbreak later on with no death. So I hope this National Preparedness and Response Plan will help us to manage, to prevent and control and manage the outbreak of cholera and gastroenteritis in Nepal, and it will help for resource allocation and mobilization, and it will develop for communication, collaboration, and coordination part. And I would like to express my best wishes for the successful implementation of this plan. Unless there is no implementation, there is no use of this plan. So first of all, I would like to thank EDCD, National Public Health Laboratory, Child Health Division, Logistic Management Division, Department of Water Supply and Sewerage, Sukraraj Tropical and Infectious Disease Hospital, Lerindra Army Hospital, and WHO, UNICEF, John Hopkins University, Group for Technical Assistant, all Sentinel Hospital NGO working on was that helped to develop this plan. And finally, I am so much happy to be here in this launching ceremony, and I'm hopeful that in the coming year we'll have more better management of the outbreak in Nepal, and we'll have more improved communication and coordination. Because as we know, unless there is no safe drinking water, we cannot control or eliminate cholera. So there should be a provision for safe drinking water and sanitation. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Ramesh Pikums. I would like to request and welcome Dr. Bhima Chari, Chief of this event, for his closing remarks.
Professor Dr. David Sack from Hopkins University, USA, and other dignitaries on the dais and on the audience. We are at the end of launching ceremony of the National Preparedness and Response Plan for Acute Gastroenteritis and Cholera Outbreaks in Nepal to Nepal. To remind you, the main objective of the plan is to improve the overall health status of Nepalese people by reducing the incidence of cholera throughout the country. It is hoped that this document will serve as more than just a government action plan, but also as a resource at all levels of the cholera response and for all relevant stakeholders. And as said by previous speakers, successful implementation is very important, and we have received many suggestions regarding this document. This document is a dynamic document. All your suggestions will be incorporated in future editions. As you know, EDCD had led a new initiative in the year 2016 to introduce CTI for preventing and responding to cholera outbreaks. The result was that we could successfully manage and take into control the cholera outbreak last time without a single death among the 169 confirmed cases. So we can confidently say that CTI is found very useful and effective in the management of cholera. Thanks to Professor Dr. David Sack, who first advocated for this intervention. Also, we are thankful to UNICEF, WHO, and other organizations who supported us to implement CTI in cholera management. We request that your cooperation will be continued in future as well. Finally, I would like to thank the chief guest for the time spent with us, Professor Dr. David Sack, for all the way coming from US to here and sharing his rich experiences in cholera. Representatives from WHO, UNICEF, EWSS, and other organizations. Former Chief Representative from Government of Nepal, Dr. Padam Bahadur Chand. Former Director General of Department of Health Services, Dr. Sarala Malla. Directors of NPHL, Nepal Public Health Lab, National Public Health Laboratory, Director of Jaipur Hospital, and Director of Central Regional Health Directorate, and other dignitaries and in the audience and media persons, and all for their active participation in this. And I would also like to thank all the presenters of the launching ceremony. Thank you all. And if there is no more business, then I declare this launching ceremony to be closed and invite you in the dinner. Thank you.
This is Honorable Division. I would like to thank you all for your active participation. After this meeting, we have a council followed by dinner. I request everyone to join the event. I love you once again. Thank you all for being here today, and we have a good night. Thank you very much.
ठीक छ
होइन टाढो ठुलै गर्नुपर्छ अनि इलिमिनेट भनेको
Thank you so much for recommending my training. I got very serious from my work in secondary school.
Okay, that's a beautiful photo. His wife can marry him with another man.
US through US to the EC. That is how what I will do. But the clinical center hospital was not in our US system. Diagnosed cases of cholera, they were okay, it's okay. So once CTA came, like they started reporting. So we started having monthly meeting and everything. So
चाहिए वाला पनि मान्छे छ अहिले रातको बेला ठ्याक्कै गफ गरेर बजाएको छ आफ्नो ग्रुप पठाएको छ
लिएपछि ड्राइभिङ गर्नु
So those are COVID, like